Now that I'm participating in tournaments and even had a top 10 finish and a top 16 finish, it's time for me to make a new proper tier list update. So let's start off with the two best decks in the game that everyone knows who they are. So let's get them out of the way real quick. And those two are of course Pikachu EX and Mewtwo EX. Every single tournament out there is always decided by these two. These two duke it out for first place every single time. And every other deck that we're gonna cover, we're gonna cover the best 8 decks in the game, by the way. And everything else will be ranked below these two. And one more thing I want to mention is that if you are not sure what are the best deck lists for each deck, I have a full meta breakdown update on my channel. So if you want to know any deck list for any specific deck, then go watch that video on my channel. So with these two things out of the way, let's go and rank the rest of the bunch, starting off with Articuno EX in the A tier. So why is it A tier? While it has been fallen a little bit out of favor, that doesn't mean it's a bad deck or something. It recently even won a tournament. It doesn't always finish high or win, because this place goes to Pikachu and Mewtwo. But in our A tier is made for decks that are very strong and have some success behind them. Not only some success, like top 5 finishes, top 8, top 16 finishes, but actually also won a tournament. So let's go over briefly what makes Articuno so strong. And the answer is here mainly the combo with Misty. For example, it is the only deck in the game that can attack on turn 1 when you're going first. If you go first, on your first turn, you can use a Misty, and if you flip 3 heads, you just win the game right there. But even if you just hit 2, you can already attack. But that is not required. As long as you flip 1 heads, Misty is already really worth it and makes this deck really fast. Another upside to Articuno is that it has multiple deck lists that are playable with it. You can pair it with the most common thing, which is Starmie, but it can also be played with Lapras and or the Greninja line. And that's what makes Articuno so strong. It has the most broken combo with Misty in the game. It has something very unique to it, with being the only deck in the game that can attack on turn 1 if you go first. And those things are what make Articuno so strong. It's something unique and something really broken. The combo with Misty is overpowered as hell. And it recently won a tournament, and that's why it's in A tier. So next up we have Charizard, and it's in the B tier, which might come to a surprise to a lot of people. I can see a lot of people will rank this deck in A tier, probably even above Articuno. But the reason it is in B tier on my list is that while it has strong finishes, there's always a Charizard list that makes like top 8, top 5, you know. It's always there in the top cut. But it never actually won a tournament, ever. It never got that first place. It is consistent, it is competitive, it is strong, but it never wins in the end. Articuno, and there's another deck that actually won tournaments, you know, or a tournament at least. They got the better of Pikachu and Mewtwo, that's something that Charizard cannot say of itself. The only reason Charizard sees so much play is because it is a favorable matchup against Mewtwo. And Mewtwo is played a lot, obviously. It's one of the best decks in the game. And if you have a favorable matchup against one of the best decks in the game, which Charizard has, you are bound to see success. But it's still very inconsistent. If you don't get that Charizard up early, you are in big trouble. And your cover, your tank that stalls for you is Moltres, which is weak to Pikachu. So while you have a strong matchup into Mewtwo, you don't have a good matchup most of the times against Pikachu. It all depends on how fast you get that Charizard going. And that will and does lead to you losing games by default, because you don't get that evolution done fast. And that's why it never won a tournament, and A tier is reserved for decks that actually won something, that got that first place. And sorry, but Charizard is not that, and that's why it's in B tier. And next up we have Marowak, who joins Charizard in that B tier. So why? Again, same as Charizard, Marowak never actually won a tournament. It never got that first place. Second reason is it is outclassed by another card that is very similar to Marowak. There's someone that we will talk about next in just a second that is a better version of Marowak, pretty much. And Marowak has the big problem that it does not have guaranteed value. Your damage is dependent on coin flips. So it's bound to happen to you that you will flip 2 tails and completely just waste a turn, which is devastating. And that will lose you games. And that's just not made for the A tier. Again, A tier is for winners who got that first place, at least at some point. It doesn't matter how consistently or how often, but Marowak never got it. And that's why he is in B. And next up, we have Executor. That's the card that I was talking about. And it's just a better version of Marowak. Now why is that? See, they are both stage 1 Pokemon. They both deal a good amount of damage for very low energy investment. So what are the differences here? First of all, Marowak has 20 more HP, which come in clutch. Executor needs 1 energy less than Marowak, which is also very helpful. Executor has guaranteed value. It always does that 40 damage. Other than Marowak, Marowak will leave you with 0 value sometimes. You waste a turn, as I said. Executor never wastes you a turn. You never walk out of your turn with 0 value. It always does that 40. That is already good enough, but there's more. Executor has a very good supporter with Erika, which shields himself by 50, and combine that with having 20 more HP than Marowak is tremendous. Like, Marowak does not have any support at all, but Executor has a very good supporter with Erika. That's a huge upside. It doesn't end here. Executor is very versatile. It can be slotted into many decks and be the star of those decks. He's not just thrown in there, he's the boss. He can be played with Wigglytuff. He can be played with Venusaur. Recently, a deck popped up that uses Victory Bell with Executor, you know? So Marowak has pretty much only one deck list. That's with Sandslash and Hitmonlee. And that's pretty much about it. Sure, maybe you can play him with Primate now, but that's not recommended, it's too inconsistent. So Executor is better when it comes to deck building. It's better in pretty much every way. And as I said many times by now, he's an A tier because he actually won a tournament. I know it's not recent, it's quite a while ago. But he got that first place at some point, you know? And Marowak didn't. And to be an A tier, you have to have a win on your side. And Executor does that. Marowak does not have that. That's why Executor is an A and Marowak is in B. Well, now, those are the 6 best Pokemon in the game to build a competitive deck around. Again, if you wanna see the deck lists, go check out my meta breakdown update video that is on my channel. There you will see every single competitive deck list out there. But now, with having these 6 kings covered, let's move on to 2 honorable mentions. And the first honorable mention I want to talk about is Ninetales. Ninetales is very fast and explosive. It's played with Rapidash, and yeah, maybe you slide in a Farfetch'd or something. That's up to you. But the point is that you deal as much damage as fast as possible. And what makes you actually be able to do that is the fact that Ninetales and Rapidash make use of Blaine, which is a very, very strong supporter card. It makes you deal 30 more damage. And just to mention something real quick is that making Ninetales deal 30 more damage, that can one-shot a Pikachu. It is very, very high value. That's one of the big reasons why this deck is so good. Also another, well, upside or downside, it depends on how you look at it, but this deck plays no EX Pokemon, which makes it so that your opponents always have to get 3 knockouts instead of just 2. And if played correctly, that can be an upside. Ninetales, just today, the day that I upload this video, made top 8 in, or top 16. I think it made top 8, maybe top 16, maybe I'm tripping, I don't know. But fact is, it made top cut in the biggest tournament that Pokemon TCG Pocket has seen so far. It had over 1,100 players in it, and Ninetales made top cut in this tournament. That's how strong it is. It never won, it probably never will win at this time, but it is very, very good and nothing to underestimate it. So that's why it's made it on the list. The second honorable mention I want to talk about is Arbok. Arbok is played with Weezing, Koga and Muk. And just as Ninetales, it plays no EX Pokemon, which makes it so that your opponent always has to knock out 3 Pokemon, and that's even more difficult for your opponent in the Arbok deck compared to the Ninetales deck. There are 2 reasons for this. First of all, the HP pool in the Arbok deck is much higher. Arbok has 100 HP, Weezing has 110, and Muk has 130 HP, while Ninetales and Rapidash, they have 90 and 100 HP. So it's already harder to knock out this Arbok deck. What puts it over the edge is that Koga can not only completely save a Pokemon that is, like if for example, it's mainly Weezing. If he's about to die, Koga, you just put them onto your hand, every damage is healed, the enemy is left poisoned. And your Weezing only needs 1 energy attachment, so that's not a big deal. So Koga makes it so that it's a free heal and a free retreat for the Weezing or even the Muk if needed. What also makes Arbok better than Ninetales, in my opinion, is that Ninetales is just a worse version of already existing decks. It wants to deal as much damage as possible, as fast as possible, just as a Pikachu wants, as an Executor wants that, a Marowak wants that, right? So Ninetales is nothing unique, but Arbok is something very unique. No other deck in this game does what this Arbok deck does. And if your opponent is not well practiced or lacks a little bit of knowledge of how to play against that Arbok deck, he can get into trouble very quickly. And that's why Arbok has seized quite a lot of tournament success. It never won, it never will, just as Ninetales, you know, but for a budget deck with no EX, it's still pretty impressive. And that's why it's here on this list as an honorable mention. And that's about it. Those are the 8 best decks in the game. The 8 best Pokemon to build a deck around. No other deck list sees as much success as they do. Those are the tournament decks. So I hope that was informative, fun, and maybe you learned a thing or two. But for now, until next time, have a great day, take care of yourselves, and bye bye.